Hey hockey player, in this video I'm going to show you some scientifically proven supplements that you can use to help increase your hockey speed. Now, first and foremost, before we get into the recommendations here, I do want to point out the obvious, that is, supplements never replace a good diet. Supplements are called supplements because they supplement an already good diet. It's something you want to have in check, and that's why I've done videos on pregame nutrition, what to drink during hockey, postgame nutrition. I've talked all about how to set up your hockey-specific diet over at hockeytraining.com. There's all kinds of information I've already made available for you guys because supplements simply don't replace real food. On top of that, many supplements in the industry today simply don't work. There's a lot of gimmicks behind them and not a lot of real peer-reviewed objective literature behind them. You have to be very careful when you enter the supplementation world to ensure that it's effective, that it's specific for hockey, and that it's also safe for long-term use. These are some major criteria I always run through before making recommendations to you guys here from Hockey Training. With that said, there are supplements that do have an effective benefit towards hockey performance and are very safe for long-term use and are excellent to add in addition to your already existing healthy hockey diet. The first one being carbohydrate powder. Carb powder is something that's been around for a long time, and it's been around for a long time for a reason. It simply works. Sports nutrition science really didn't start until about the 1960s, but carbohydrate powder was at the top of the list. Really, carbohydrate powder and electrolytes were the first things to really be introduced into sports nutrition science and nutrient timing science during intense bouts of physical activity. But as the decades went on and as more and more literature came out, we came to find out that carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source for both the muscular system and the nervous system. You see, when you store carbohydrates in the muscle cell, that's known as muscle glycogen. And that muscle glycogen is used to fuel anaerobic events. Hockey is an anaerobic sport, so we know we can utilize those carbohydrates within the muscle cell to excel in anaerobic activities such as hockey speed out in the ice. But there's more to it here, because a stored version of carbohydrates in the muscle is known as muscle glycogen. But carbohydrates that haven't been stored yet and they're still circulating around in the vascular networks, that's known as blood glucose. And blood glucose is the preferred fuel source of the nervous system. Now we have a fuel source for our muscle system and we have a fuel source for our nervous system. It's very important to care about the nervous system because the nervous system is what recruits muscle fibers to be able to even contract in the first place. So now we have a big engine, which is our muscles, but now we also have an excellent driver, which is our nervous system. And the combination of those two allows you to be able to contract your muscles at maximum velocities and then also be able to sustain those velocities for a longer period of time. Thus, carbohydrate powder being a very excellent idea to incorporate for having a benefit with your hockey speed out in the ice. That's number one. Number two is creatine. Creatine has over 500 different published scientific studies at this point in time. It's one of the most popular supplements in the history of sports performance, and with popularity always comes a bunch of nonsense, meaning a lot of people mix up what certain scientific literature has to say about something. You're going to hear a lot of bad things about creatine from people who are, put very simply, uninformed. Anybody who is informed in sports nutrition science will tell you that creatine is effective for anaerobic peak power outputs and anaerobic capacity, meaning this is something that's really going to help give you the exact fuel substrates that you need within your muscles to not just be able to maintain a high level of physical exertion for an extended period of time, but also reach higher peaks as well, thus helping with that explosive performance, but also maintaining that power output as well. You can connect that directly to hockey speed. This has been demonstrated to improve sprint performance in as little as 7 days of supplementation. something that very few supplements can ever say ever. And with over 500 published studies at this point in time, it's been demonstrated many times over that this is one of the most safest and effective supplements in the game today. But when I'm talking about all those 500 studies, what am I talking about? I'm talking about creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate is what you're going to want to stick to. There's a lot of other fancy creatines out there that are a little bit more of a marketing gimmick than actual science. You're going to come across a litany of different types of creatine. Trust me, been in the game a long time, reviewed the research to the point of exhaustion, and creatine monohydrate was one of the first creatines to ever come out, and it's still the king. That is the king. And creatine typically should be supplemented at about 3 to 5 grams per day, every day. When should you have it? On training days, it's best to have it post-workout. On game days, best to have it post-game. But on non-training days and non-game days, you can have it whenever you want. Carbohydrate powder, it really depends on your activity level. So I do recommend watching the video I've already posted called What to Drink during a hockey game, or going to hockeytraining.com/nutrition to find out your formula there. But typically it's 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrate powder during a game or a workout, which leads us to number 3, which is caffeine. Caffeine, as I'm sure you know and have experienced, caffeine is a stimulant. It stimulates the adrenal glands, which upregulates certain hormones and neurotransmitters and glucocorticoids in our body to send the signals of, hey, now I am mentally alert, but I'm also physically ready to expend myself to a greater degree during physical activity. Caffeine's been demonstrated to increase force outputs, as in increase total strength capacity, but it's also been demonstrated to increase power output, which is very important for that explosive speed that you're going to need out in the ice. And caffeine's also been demonstrated to reduce feelings of perceived exertion. So if I've been sprinting for a long time, sometimes if I'm not stimulated by caffeine, I'm being like, man, my legs are sore, I'm out of breath, I kind of want to quit right now. But when you're stimulated, you kind of got that invincible kind of feeling, right? You feel like you can just keep going and going and going and going. Yeah, you'll see it the first time someone ever has a coffee, they're kind of crazy that day. Or the first time someone tries a pre-workout for the first time, they're a little bit crazy that time. And a lot of that is due to the decreased feelings of perceived exertion. So we're getting better strength, we're getting a lot more power output, and we're also reducing the feelings of perceived exertion, which allows us to go harder for longer, thus having quite a wide array of benefits for both training and actual hockey performance. The real trick here, though, is caffeine is very dependent upon your sensitivity to it. Meaning, if you have caffeine every single day, your receptor sites for how caffeine is going to act in your body, they begin to really decrease. And the only effect of habitual caffeine users is they're going to have increased feelings of alertness. But the physical capacity benefits are gone. As the research continues to come out, you're going to want to keep caffeine to really only twice per week of use if you actually want to get the physical performance benefits from it. Sure, you're going to be more alert and you're going to have mental performance benefits from taking caffeine every day. But if you actually want the force outputs, the peak power outputs, the anaerobic capacity, if you want these things to stick around, then you should really keep your receptor sensitivity very fresh and not limit yourself to caffeine intake no more than twice per week. How much caffeine should you have? Really depends on the individual. It's something I really can't answer to as large of an audience as this, because some of you have a coffee in the morning and then you can't sleep at night because you're so sensitive to the effects of caffeine. Whereas you've got other people having energy drinks all day and then they could go take a nap. So it's something very individual, but for most people, most of the time, anywhere between 100 and 250 milligrams of caffeine in a serving tends to do the trick. But again, start very, 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 very low if you don't know how sensitive you are, because you can always start low and work your way up if you need to from there. But caffeine, very effective for improving certain things within our nervous system and muscular system towards peak power outputs that translate themselves into hockey speed. Last but not least, Beetroot. Some of you may know this just as a food, but it is a supplement and it's a very effective supplement at that. You'll notice this is a short list of things I'm talking about here, and this made the list because it's very effective based on its nitrate content. Nitrates are something that improve the vascular health of the body, but also improve the vascular efficiency. So we're essentially getting blood into working muscle tissue at a better rate, and we're also clearing fatigue byproducts out of our muscle cells at a faster rate as well. Nitrates are very effective for this, and you can get nitrates from a wide variety of different foods, but beets just seem to be the most rich source of them. And to be frank, beetroot has the most excellent research behind it in terms of containing nitrates and that relaying itself out into improved performance where it actually matters. Now, how much beetroot should you have? Well, it depends on the nitrate content. And from a nitrate perspective, you should typically want to be between 6 to 12 milligrams per kilogram of body weight before your bout of physical exertion. So before a game or before a practice or before a workout, you'd want to stick to 6 to 12 milligrams of nitrates per kilogram of body weight. That's a lot to kind of calculate and figure out what the heck's going on. So for the average 150-pound individual, it's somewhere around 400 milligrams of nitrates. How can you get that in? Well, 400 milligrams of nitrates is actually a lot of beets. So you would want to make a smoothie out of the beets if you wanted to do it from whole food. But you can also get supplementation beetroot as well. You can get the nitrates in capsule form, so it's a lot easier to consume. Some people prefer the real food. Other people prefer the convenience of the capsules. I don't really care. They're both safe and effective, and they're both going to be good for your hockey speed. So these are the 4 products I think can have an excellent benefit on your hockey speed. Some conditions are in place though. I really don't recommend any supplementation at all for athletes under 15 years old. Athletes under 15 years old can have carbohydrate powder, they can have whey protein, but I like to keep it super, super, super basic. For youth athletes, they should really just be focusing on eating good diets and real food and developing healthy nutritional habits. But once you're 15 and older and you're ready for supplementation, then these can be great, safe, and effective options for you to include. And I've also included all of my recommended options in the description of this video, so you can just go check them out directly right away and start incorporating these into your hockey performance schedule so you can increase your hockey speed. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I was able to teach you here something today. For more information on all things hockey nutrition, go to hockeytraining.com/nutrition. And hey, this video is about speed. So if you want to download the free explosive speed package, click on that link in the comment section below.